The place farther out in the ocean to catch ahi in particular.
The joys of shooting in the elements.
One of the meanings of Lēʻahi is the brow of the ahi, the brow of the fish. And so I was imagining looking from the ocean's perspective up at Lēʻahi. It does look like, or it can look like you're pulling up a fish, out of the water. In the time of our kupuna, there were different ways of fishing, and I got to read this amazing moʻolelo about how Lawaiʻa knew or had particular koʻa huna, or hidden places out on the water where they knew they could go and return to for fish all the time. And they were often kept huna, they were kept secret so that only they would know about it, of course. And it was often these guarded secrets amongst fishermen. And they could go out, and it was so plentiful, it was so abundant that they had their lures, and they would sink or run the line, and kind of troll it at the bottom, and the ahi would bite. And they'd bite at these different points wherever they had tied the lures, right, on the line. And they would know just by virtue of like how it felt and the way in which the line was moving, how many had gotten onto the line. But once they were on, they'd already be hooked. And then it was a matter, because these are deep sea, ahi are deep sea fish. Then it was a matter of then pulling them up, and you could easily pull up, one moʻolelo said like 40 at a time. To pull them up, right? Yeah. And then they would just be pulled up, and they would be hooked on, and they would essentially die as they got up closer to the surface, right? Because of the change in the water pressure and everything. And so, but just with that, you're able to feed like your community for a while. And so it was always just like a time of celebration to bring an ahi up to the surface, know? And so I was imagining that moʻolelo and that perspective of looking at Lēʻahi as land, as this abundant land, right? Or a sign of an abundant land, as inspiration when I was writing the poem.
Yeah.
So yeah, Lēʻahi.
Can you do me a favor real quick? Just hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying our videos. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we're not there yet. So every bit counts. Thanks.
All of the signs, they're kind of set up like this, with the hook for the ahi in the middle. And they also have this like black bar right here, and then on either side of the hook are words from the poem. At Makale and Lēʻahi Beach, it was set up more of as an ancestral scene of what Lēʻahi would have meant, what it would have looked like, what the waters would have been like during the time of our kupuna. But here, the mana'o, the perspective really shifts to further engage with the militarization of Lēʻahi. And so to have that shift be so dramatic, I felt it was really important for us to think about that, especially in this time when there's a really strong sense of urgency about climate and environment and protecting aina, that I wanted to really kind of point out. Like, also, there's a lot of sense of urgency with regard to violence inflicted upon other peoples through war, through genocide. And there are ways in which I think people more and more over generations have been openly critiquing the military for the role that it has played in U.S. imperialism in other lands, and then U.S. colonialism in all of the indigenous lands that comprise it today. So I really wanted to kind of bring that together for here, and to really interrogate the militarization of Lēʻahi. So Lēʻahi, you can actually go on a tour into the Lēʻahi military installation. I'm not sure if you have yet.
I've just seen it.
But yeah,
yeah,
it's very dark. But basically what they did was they carved out a big part, a large part of the pu'u. Yeah. Oh.
Now we have like ye old prop planes. It's like we're going back to when they first installed this.
So what they did was they actually hollowed out a significant portion of Lēʻahi in order to install these bunkers, as well as batteries and storage for weapons, and also just, I mean, there's so many things. It's actually, there's like a series of tunnels and everything that go through. So I really felt like from our perspective, our Aina is an ancestor. Yeah. It's more than deserving of personhood. It actually is so much better than personhood. It comes before us, right? Or it should come before us. And so to do that kind of violence in order to perpetuate more and more violence, I wanted to first kind of recognize the harm that was done to Lēʻahi. It felt really important for me to call it a lobotomy in particular, because of the way in which it like just sort of dug into the pu'u and carved it out. Yeah. And then what was stored there, what it was used to store, you know, all of these horrible weapons and things. So yeah, this is the part where there's a really big shift in the poem to really highlight that. Along with the militarization of Lēʻahi and so many other places, especially on Oʻahu, but other places throughout the Pai'aina of Hawaii, comes also alongside further and further dispossession of Hawaiian lands, you know, from Hawaiian peoples and communities, which also means dispossession of our ways of life. You know, fishing grounds get more and more depleted for commercialization of those fishing. Farmlands get taken over, and you know, we see today that it's actually still a struggle to get a designation of agricultural lands like that are protected now, because there's more development than that. And there continue to be so many struggles with the military, most recently, of course, with Red Hill or Kapukaki. So wanted to highlight, you know, all of that, and really just sort of leave people with something, or wondering, like, is this what we want to do? Is this where we should be going? Is this worth it? Is it worth it to sacrifice our Aina, to sacrifice Hawaii, sacrifice our communities, sacrifice this beautiful place that we live in, and for this kind of violence? Yeah, and the money that gets generated from it too.
Yeah. What's it been like to know that art can be this vessel for, you know, those thoughts and learning?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that question. I think while there can be ways in which it's misunderstood, because it's open, often art is open to interpretation. You know, even if you have lines like these that are fairly overt. I like the ways in which art creates spaces for people to develop and evolve their thinking about something. So maybe they begin in one particular place and they read lines like this, and maybe it's possible they feel defensive, or it's possible they're like, okay, I kind of know what it's talking about, I'm not sure. But then they can sit with it, or maybe things, aspects of some of the images keep So while there's room for misinterpretation, perhaps, I think there's much more space for people to develop and evolve their thinking about something, especially if it elicits some kind of emotional reaction, right? So if it is defensiveness, they're going to be thinking about like, oh, why? And maybe even arguing against it in their head. Right. But then that's something, right? It's elicited some sort of a reaction. And maybe over time they'll think about it, or they'll be able to connect it to other things that they see. And maybe there could be a shift, or maybe there's just a way in which it stays with them nevertheless, right? But there's a way in which I think art creates a space for people to come to conclusions on their own and to think about perhaps even changing or thinking about how they have changed their thinking by virtue of coming into contact with the art. The idea was with the hook, beyond just having it be a stylistic or an aesthetic element to this, was that you could look through the glass and see it hooking Lēʻahi. I mean, depending on where you stand, it's going to be different. But the idea was that the hook is going into Lēʻahi, like pulling up the ahi. So the process was to, I had a vision of which lines, which verses would, or stanzas would go on the sign, and designed it for that. But I also was worried about these two signs in particular, because they needed to be approved, not only by the city, but also by the neighborhood boards. So people who live here had representatives that needed to approve it first. So the city and county of Honolulu, as well as the neighborhoods, were also really invested in like, oh, I think these are good things for us to discuss and think about. And so there have been really interesting talks, like community talks, kind of centered around that have been mainly on social media. Like when the signs first came up, people were like, what is this? What's happening? Like, what is, there were a lot of questions about it. There were some debates happening, but for the most part, people, like, it did generate this really amazing kind of discussion of people like kind of, coming at it from different political angles and relating it to, like, people were like, oh, this is about annexation. This is about what's happening in the United States. This is about da 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 da. And so people were bringing in their own sort of connections, which were really kind of amazing to see. It was exactly like what we had just talked about, where people were coming with approaching it with a kind of openness that then enabled them to have these discussions that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Perhaps.